All right. Good morning, everyone. Jennifer, that includes you, because Chelsea, that includes you too, because we're still in morning here in the mountain time zone. Jen rolls her eyes at me every time because she knows full well that the majority of our audience is listening to this or watching this in syndication, and it's not morning at that point. But nonetheless, to those of you that are watching us live, or listening to us live, good morning. Welcome to another episode of How I Met Your Mortgage. I'm your host with Just the Tips Coaching. I'm Adam. With us, as always, is one of our other coaches and our marketing director, Jen Waybower. Good morning, Jen.
Good morning, Adam.
And we've got a really cool guest for you guys today. We've been looking forward to this episode for quite a while. Chelsea VanBurkirk. Good morning, Chelsea.
Good morning.
And of course, Jen and I have been watching you and your production and your social media activity for, oh gosh, I don't know, probably a year or better. We certainly know about your hump day tips on being a buyer, being a seller, those kinds of things. We get a big kick out of those videos for sure. So we know that this isn't unique to you, that this isn't strange to you, that being on video isn't making you uncomfortable, that being live isn't making you uncomfortable, those kinds of things. So we've obviously been pretty excited to have you on board for this episode.
Well, good. Thank you so much for having me. And I hope that you definitely only started watching me recently, because when I first started doing videos, it wasn't, the greatest. I look back at those and it's kind of very cringeworthy, but also funny and entertaining. So.
My favorite thing is to look at Adam's first videos.
I knew that was coming.
It's I have to say it every time. They go back like 8 years or something, or 10 years even. But scroll back on the YouTube channel if you want a good laugh. It's a good time.
Oh my. All right, well, credit where credit's due. A couple of colleagues of mine from the National Real Estate Post, Brian Stevens and Frank Gray, had pushed me for a long time into doing video. And after that, another colleague had published a book actually called Taking Imperfect Action. The Art of Getting Shit Done, I think, is the subtitle. And he's right. That's Chad Prio, and they were all right. Doing video is a big, big deal. And taking imperfect action, just getting started, just do it. It'll get better as time goes on is certainly true as well. And yeah, Jen's right. Those early videos from a decade ago are awful. Oh, so awful. It pains me to watch them. Jen, I know, gets a big chuckle out of them, and now all of you listening are going to go find our YouTube channel and go look at some of those old videos. But let's talk about more modern day type stuff. Chelsea, just so you're aware, normally what we do through this podcast process is kind of get a take on you, your history, your business, how you got in, what you've done for lead gen activity from back then versus now, those kinds of things. Obviously, we've covered on a little bit of what you're doing now. We talked about that video stuff. But I do want to leave the door open to discuss what's going on in the real estate market. It is really enlightening to have people on this show that can give us some insight into what's a really tumultuous time in real estate, a very difficult time for buyers, a major issue with a housing shortage, things that are going to continue and exacerbate in years, maybe decades to come. So don't feel for a moment like we don't want your expertise on that subject as well, especially considering before we went live, those of you that are watching, Chelsea got a buyer under contract this morning. Congratulations. That is a very big deal in the current market. We know people who've looked at 100 homes, made offers on 30, et cetera, still don't have one under contract, so we see an awful lot of that. But I digress. Chelsea, let's go into the Wayback Machine and give us some insight as to how you got started in the business.
Yeah, so, my intro to real estate was actually on the investment side. Me and my husband started, acquiring some income properties. I would go in there and help him kind of refurbish, not like an extreme like flipped situation, but just kind of buy lower end homes and fix them up enough to be able to rent out. So we would do all the manual labor. I would help, with finding tenants, that kind of thing. And a couple of years into that, he was thinking of getting his real estate license, and then it was kind of like, he already has a bunch of other businesses, like, let me do something. So I decided I would take the reins on that and go to school and get my real estate license. So initially it was almost just as a benefit for us to be able to have our own license to be able to accumulate properties for ourselves. But up until that point, I had been a stay-at-home mom, never really had much of a career, and I actually got started working under my mother-in-law. She was a senior escrow officer, worked in the title world for 30 plus years, was an amazing closer, and she got me in the role of being a notary signing agent. So I would be the one that would sit at the closing table and sign and notarize the closing documents or go to people's homes for refinances. So started doing that while I went to school to get my real estate license. Once I got my license, I transitioned to, doing more real estate full time, but I will be honest, my first year was a complete shit show.
There's a lot of that.
Okay. 0 deals my first year. I had a big head thinking, oh, I've got all this experience with investments. I've got experience on the title side. Like, I know so much. I'll be great at this. And I was not. It was very hard getting things started. I mean, I tried everything. I got duped into buying all kinds of lead programs. You get sold a lot as a new agent. Like, oh, we've got...
Oh, it's constant. The noise is insane. Yeah, for bombardment.
Yeah, you're susceptible to kind of falling for those things because you just want business. You want the experience, and you're going to classes and you're surrounded by all these agents, and it's like they're telling you what to do, how to manage clients, and you're like, I just want a client, like, please, like, I just want to be able to do something. And I was doing the videos. I followed somebody that was doing video and was talking about how using video was just so great at being able to showcase yourself and have people get to know you on a grander scale. And so I started doing the Hump Day Homebuyer Tips with one of my lender partners back in the day, Travis Green, and he's actually in Hawaii now, but we had fun doing that, and they weren't great, but it was fun doing it, and it kind of led me to get recruited by a team over at another brokerage, and that team was literally what set my business off. Like, they were very big on pushing the video and being consistent and being authentic. And I think that was kind of the biggest takeaway was stop trying to be what everybody else is being, just be myself and just be valuable, and stop trying to just don't be desperate for clients. I think there's a thing in one of Tom Ferry's training where he talks about commission breath, where you're when you have that desperation and people just don't want to work with you because they know all you care about is getting paid and that kind of thing. So, really shifting that mindset to being focused on the consumer and how you can help them and what value you can provide, and then doing it in a way that was authentic to me and my personality, not trying to be somebody else, and just getting in the camera every day. So some of the videos I started doing consistently was just a Friday video where I would just talk, just what's going on in my week, what did I do in business, what's going on in the real estate market. Like, it was just kind of broad, just me, not necessarily real estate focused, but then partnering that with a consistent, real estate backed, value-based, video to just kind of, I guess, solidify my reputation. And that's what really kind of just got the ball rolling as far as referrals, and then people seeing stuff and getting clients, and then just building from there.
Wow. Okay, so if I'm translating this correctly, and I think I am, and that's kind of tongue-in-cheek, one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle is be authentic. Be the real you. Okay, yeah, it's certainly something that we would promote here at Just the Tips. I think another piece of this puzzle is that people, your audience, people that are going to refer business to you, that are going to do business with you, want to know what you're like outside of being a real estate machine. You are not a real estate robot. No matter who you are out there in our podcast reach, in our video cast reach, you are not a robot of whatever sales machine you happen to be in. You are a legitimate, authentic person with interests, with desires, with hopes, with dreams, with hobbies. That's the kind of thing that we want you to put out there. We already know that Chelsea is a parent and a spouse. And boy, I saw some photo on your Facebook page of you twisted around like a pretzel that I thought was painful looking. I'm guessing that's either yoga or gymnastics, or you're training to be an astronaut, one of the above. So that was an important piece of the puzzle as well. And I think if I'm reading you correctly, and I want our audience to pick up on this, video is frickin' huge. Do it. Do video. I don't care how you do it. We do Instagram TV and Facebook Live, and what am I missing, Jen? YouTube and YouTube Live, and I mean the amount of organic video to reach an audience and let them know who you really are, what you're really about, what you're like, is virtually limitless. I mean, this is a big, big deal for marketing and lead gen today. I cannot emphasize that enough. And it was 10 years ago when Frank and Brian pushed me into it. Yes, we have probably seen a pinnacle of where this kind of video marketing has reached, but it's going to exist for a long, long time. So don't think, those of you listening, don't think that you've missed the boat. Get started on it right now. Pretty please with sugar on top in very Harvey Keitel fashion. Please clean the car. So yeah, that is certainly a big deal. And it's really cool that you're in a position where making a change in teams, making a change in companies enabled you to further that activity. I mean, I don't know that that's all that common. Is it something you were looking for? Were you looking for another avenue that was going to help you promote what you do in your lead gen activity? Or was it just coincidence?
I mean, I definitely was looking for some kind of guidance because I felt like I was trying everything and just nothing was working. So it was kind of like, what is the missing piece? What am I missing? Why am I still not getting business? And so when I met with these team leads and they knew that I had no deals under, I mean, they saw I had no, nothing I had closed yet to that point, and I had been an agent for over a year. But the thing that they told me is the reason why they saw me out is because I was still doing video. I was still putting myself out there, even though I hadn't had any business, where most people give up. I mean, they tell you when you get your license that most agents give up after a year or two, like they don't continue on with the business. It's a very hard business to establish yourself in. And they said the fact that I didn't give up showed that I had the work ethic to keep going, and they wanted to help me grow what I was doing and help me do things a little bit better. So, they brought me in and I was grateful, and it just, they did like weekly accountability meetings, like what am I doing? And, here's what I can do to be better. They would critique my videos and just really help me build that confidence to keep putting myself out there. And like you said, video is so important and everybody should be doing it, and people get scared. And I mean, just like we just talked about our initial videos, like they're laughable now. Everybody starts somewhere. Like you're not going to start, your day one video is going to be completely different than your 100th video. No one starts at the 100th day. We all start from day one. So just practice, just do it. And like you said, like just the action trumps nothing, right? Like if you just put yourself out there and take action, that's better than just sitting on the sidelines. And the other important thing is like my team was really big on not buying leads. Like they didn't do Zillow, they didn't do Realtor. It was all about just, sphere-based marketing and bringing value to the customer. And I think that is so big because so many other people just rely on, these other companies and outside things, when you really have the power to generate leads yourself just by being yourself and putting yourself out there and building value.
Okay, hang on, because I may actually ask you to repeat that. We may actually ask you to come back on the show again and repeat that again and again and again. But yeah, buying leads, oh, please stop, don't. If you're getting quality leads, let's put it that way, odds are good you might be lining the pocket of a company that would like to be doing your job anyway. We don't need to talk about any particular organizations, although it rhymes with Zillow. And now we're talking about the pinnacle of internet leads, the rest of them. And again, like Chelsea had mentioned at the onset of her career, the volume of crap that's being thrown at you for different ideas on marketing and leads and so on and so forth is so voluminous, and it's so much noise that it's hard to tune it out, although you got to do it, especially if you're new to the game. But yeah, God, buying leads when you have the ability to generate your own leads, if you're doing good contact management, if you're doing good social media, if you're doing good video, and by the way, guys, Chelsea is doing all of these, then yeah, you don't need to buy leads that, God, you might have a 1% conversion rate on. You're talking to complete strangers. Those leads were sold to 4 other people, including another lead company that sold it to 8 other people. So now you're talking to somebody who's pissed off because they've gotten so many calls. The brain damage and the lack of success that comes from leads, really from any source, compared to the mindset and the social and emotional reward, not to mention the financial and intrinsic rewards that you're going to get from working your own database, your own databases, it's night and day. Jen, I'm not sure anybody has ever said that on this show, that no, I work for a company that does not buy leads. We do not want to buy leads. We will not buy leads. We're going to show you how to, generate your own.
I don't think anyone's ever said that.
No one's ever said that. This is exactly what we do at Just the Tip. So yeah, Chelsea, you really struck a chord there with all of us. I assure you that will go down as something epic. If you follow the rest of our social media over the next couple of weeks, I promise you're going to see a lot of quotes from you on this show that Jen's going to put out there in different graphics. So very cool. Thank you so much. I hate to do this just because I don't want to be the harbinger. I don't want it to sound all doomsday, etc. Although I think a good way to segue into this without really making it seem so bleak, so desolate, is what happened with the buyer that you got under contract this morning? How did that come to pass? How are you in a sea of where every major metropolitan area, every urban area has got 30, 40, 50 buyers for every seller right now, able to get your buyer under contract?
I was actually so excited, and what's really, so let me just backtrack. So this is not the first offer I wrote for this buyer. Okay, we've been looking since November. It has been an uphill battle. It's just got worse and worse and worse as time has gone on. More buyers are coming to the market, more competition to beat out, and so a lot of it had to do with bringing, that list price down quite a bit to what our max was, and I think that really helped significantly. So to give you an example, I think the home we went under contract for was listed, I want to say this one might have been at 350. The one we got was at 350. Our contract's at 385. So to just give you that difference, I mean, that's typical for what we're seeing, but her max purchase price was closer to the 400, 420 mark. This home needs a little bit of work, but not much. Like, it had great bones, that kind of thing. So it's just taking what your buyer wants and then strategically figuring out how we can get you as close as we can with what's available. Like, what are some strategies we can have? So, for her, she wanted to find a house that, one, maybe she could use some of the cash that she has, like down payment cash, right? That she could not use all of it, but have some aside that she could fix up some things in a home that might need some work. So instead of going after like that move-in ready home at the higher price where you have a bunch more people, throwing money at and just getting crazy, like where she's priced out, going after something a little bit more attainable where she can put some time and work into it over time. And again, with the market doing its thing, like if she slowly remodels it, building like updating it and building the value there, the appreciation value is already going to be increasing as well as time goes on, just with our current real estate climate. So
November to March, that's been a brutal period for her.
Yeah, so I think today they're winning this one was, she's a very well qualified buyer, and even the agent told me, she said, how come she hasn't, got anything yet? I'm surprised, she's solid. I said, we've just been beat out either by cash offers, or we couldn't go any higher than we went as high as we could go. We just couldn't go any higher, and people could go higher, and that's just what happened. So I think on this one we came in, out the gate with a strong offer. I think a couple months ago or early January, it was like we could still do escalation clauses and all this kind of thing, but now it's like, no, you got to go in there with that top offer right off the bat, like no games, like you got to just put your best foot forward. And then stay in communication with the listing agent to see, so if you do have a little wiggle room and you're close, then maybe you can bump it up a little bit at that point. But, constant communication and just playing your cards right and strategizing the best with what you can, I think is in the end what can get you. So we're excited that we finally got something.
She should be really excited. Awesome. For that length of time, at that price point, in this market, you should be excited. And you should be very proud of yourself.
Great. Yeah, this one has a great HOA community pool, and the HOA fees are low compared to some other ones. So I'm like, man, we scored. I'm so excited. So, yep.
All right.
That's great.
So you've and a lot of agents have. Well, what do we say? There's an 80-20 rule everywhere. So let's say 20% of the agents have witnessed what's gone on. And I guess those numbers about jive. We've got about 5,000 listings in the Denver metro area and 25,000 real estate agents. So let's call it 80-20, which seems to apply regardless of what ratios we're talking about or what avenue we're talking about when these ratios apply. So this was a tough window for her, for you. November to March, certainly been insane. I mean, obviously we've been witnessing this for a number of years, 5 or 10 at least, well, at least 5. And we're seeing really incredible appreciation. I want to highlight that as much as I can for those of you that already do own real estate. And it's getting worse, it seems. I mean, there was a time a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, where we really thought a housing shortage meant 7,000 or 8,000 listings in the Denver metro area. Now we're down to like 5,000. So we're certainly propagating the problem. It's getting worse and probably will for some time to come. I cannot see a solution where we're, going to solve the housing shortage of these proportions in any way, shape, or form anytime soon. So, Chelsea, what does this look like in another year, 3, 5, 10, maybe 20? It may take that long to solve a housing shortage. We keep living longer. People stay healthier. They stay in their houses longer. We keep reproducing. That activity is a lot of fun. I get it. So what do you see for the next few years with this particular problem? And I know it's going to take a whole lot of people, a lot smarter than me, to figure out how to solve it. But what do you see for any potential solutions down the road?
I mean, it's really hard to say. Like, obviously, we can only build so many homes. So I know we're already, kind of tapping that market. Like, we're expanding. You see all the new developments happening out by the airport, things like that. So, we'll continue to build where we can, essentially. And I think what's going to change is just the ability to work remotely. We've seen how this pandemic has changed that and made a lot of made that be an option for a lot more people to be able to work remote. So that's why we're seeing all these people, from the coast who are looking at even higher price markets than we are. They're coming in here because they see Colorado as a place where they can do more outdoor activities, those kinds of things. So I think we'll continue to see people transitioning where they know they don't have to be living where they're working, right? We're going to see more people being able to telecommute. So hope that could help alleviate the problem. I also, with interest rates, as far as like the buyer competition, where we just have people just throwing crazy amounts of cash, which I think is one of the biggest competition problems for buyers who don't have that kind of cash. Like, solutions there would be one, to buyers to just like calm down a little bit, like let's be reasonable, or encourage and empower people who don't have cash and savings to really focus on that. Like, that should be your focus right now, is how can you budget, how can you save money and build yourself a foundation so you can position yourself better in these scenarios where you're having to compete with other people. Because I feel like we're kind of on the verge of having this transitional mindset of people getting student debt and things like that, where we're finally seeing where maybe that's not the smartest idea to be encompassing all that student debt. Like, maybe we should be looking for other solutions, or to be educating ourselves from an earlier age to be more mindful of money and spending habits, and learning about debt and what that means, and just preparing our future to better position themselves to have money and good credit and those kinds of things to help position them better.
I agree. I hope our audience really picks up on that. If you are of that age group that Chelsea is referring to and you're listening to this, please do pay it some mind. And perhaps you're of an age group where your children are in that particular sect, and that would be wise information to pass on. And Jen and I have talked about this for, a number of weeks or months. And at the current pace that we're going, a decade from now, the average single-family home in the Denver metro area, and for those of you that don't know, Chelsea and I are both local to Denver, and what she's referring to, building out by the airport, Denver's nestled up against the mountains, very expensive to build in the high country, granite table, those kinds of things, water taps, power taps. To the north and south, because it is the Front Range nestled up against the mountains, we do have cities in both of those directions, Colorado Springs to the south, Fort Collins to the north. So we can basically build all the way east to Kansas, which is where our new airport is. I guess it's not that new anymore, 20 years. So that's what Chelsea's referring to for those of you that aren't local to our particular geography. But if this continues, I digress. If this continues, a decade from now, average single family home in this market exceeds $1 million. And while the lending, and I don't take full responsibility, but my industry is certainly to blame, we see conforming loans increase about 6% a year, while the real estate is actually increasing right now I don't know, after this, what we see goes on in 2020, 2021, 15, 20% per year. I don't know. It's insane. But the lending can't keep pace. So now we're talking about high balance type stuff. These are a decade from now, we're going to have buyers that are going to need $250,000 in cash. And they're going to need $250,000 in combined household income to sustain the debt on the other $800,000 minus the down payment on that 1.015 or 1.05 or $1.1 million entry level home in order to sustain that debt. So yeah, if you guys are listening intently to Chelsea's advice there, having that cash, having that capital, having that income, having the negligible amount of debt, as little additional debt as you possibly can, these are all going to be really important factors for buying a home in 3, 5, 10 years from now, pretty much no matter where you live. I see poor Jen nodding her head. Yeah, Jen is in this group, and Jen would love to be a homeowner today. Jen's a renter in a relatively inexpensive, Jen lives in Monument, Colorado. It's kind of right in between Denver and Colorado Springs. Nowadays, I'd probably consider it a suburb of Colorado Springs. And this should be one of the most affordable home and rental residential living space places in the entire state. Well, certainly up and down the Front Range, up and down the I-25 corridor. And tell us again, Jen, I know this is kind of personal shit, but the rent on your one-bedroom apartment is $1,100?
With
More?
the fees, I pay $1,300 a month.
$1,300 a month for a relatively rural one-bedroom apartment that's not downtown Denver, that's not downtown Colorado Springs. And yeah, just to be in excess of $1,000 a bedroom is insane to me. And the ability to buy a home is, God, I don't know. What do you think, Chelsea? I mean, are we just separating the haves and the have-nots even further? Are we creating a greater chasm? Is it only going to be the 1%ers that can buy homes in 10 years?
Yeah, that's a tough question because, I hope not. I really hope not. I really hope it doesn't go that way at all. I'd rather see more ways to empower people to get, their chunk of real estate, you know what I mean, to be able to get their teeth in and to establish themselves in that way. So yeah, I mean, it's a tough market, and I don't really know all the answers to that. And I just hope that we can just help better prepare and educate people to get them in the best position possible so that they do have a chance. And hopefully we do, we see things balance out a little bit better so that people do have more leverage to be able to get into something on an entry level where they're not exceeding, hopefully, I hear your idea about 10 years from now and I'm like, oh shit, like that sounds just very hard to even comprehend at right now, right? But again, that's where we're headed with how things are right now. And so it's just so hard to comprehend how that will even unfold. So it's just really hard to say. I mean, I really think at this point, just the best thing to do is to just, find ways to save up, pay off debt, and just position yourself the best you can and hope that you can find a good deal,
Yeah, I think that's true. We haven't talked about this particular subject on the podcast for a lot of episodes, only a handful thus far, and obviously we've been talking about this in both our offices, our coaching Just the Tips office and both our mortgage company office. Because it seems a little untenable. It's just, hard. It's difficult to get our heads around what's going to happen. No matter what, my crystal ball is in the shop. So it's a tough one, but I do think if we continue on this trend, we're going to be in a tough spot, tougher than we are now even. And I do want to say, Chelsea, that I think that's really the first, I don't want to call it a solution, but the first logical piece that anybody's really been able to come up with and share with our audience thus far is that the preparation and planning for the individuals that would be potential future home buyers is really the best step in our in our entire arsenal right now. I mean, we've talked about all kinds of different things that builders could be doing, more high density. We talked about this weird dorm room type building where we're going to build units with 4 master suites and sell each master suite individually with some shared common space, that kind of nightmare. But yeah, this is probably the first thing that anybody's really said that makes a whole lot of sense and actually does provide a true not solution, but path to one, is that the people that want to be homeowners going forward need to be better prepared than they were 5 years ago. 5 years from now, you're going to need more cash. You're going to need more income. You're going to need less debt, those kinds of things, than the people who were able to buy homes 5 years ago. That's just the fact of the matter. And yeah, Chelsea's really spot on with this here, guys. You've got to be better prepared. You've got to be more financially literate to buy a home in 5 years than the people who did 5 years ago.
And I think it's one of those things too, is where, you have to really think about, what am I in control of? I can't control what happens in politics. I can't control the economy. I can't control like what the rates are going to do, but I can control what, like, my credit. I can control that. I can control where I spend my money. I can control how I pay off debt. I can control ways that I'm bringing in income. Like, there's so many things that are in your control. So when you focus on that, like you said, like, that's kind of your path to finding a solution to where, is just doing what you can. What are you in control of? What can you do to best prepare yourself?
Yeah, work on what's in your own bubble. Yeah, that's good advice. And yes, Jen, I'm aware that we've run over, that this is what happens when we're having what I'd like to think is intellectual conversation anyway. Hopefully our audience agrees. Chelsea, give us some highlights on how our audience can reach you.
Definitely on Facebook quite a bit. So if you're on Facebook, you can find me at Chelsea VanBurkirk. I think it's Chelsea.VanBurkirk, Facebook/whatever. I'm sure we'll pop that in the comments. My number we'll put in the comments as well. You can text me, call me there, and we'll throw my email in there too. It's info@homeswithchelsea.com. And again, we can throw that all in the comments so you don't have to try to figure out how to spell my name.
Yeah. and the only reason I know we didn't talk about it live, but you had said that a big part of the influence of you getting into real estate was your mother-in-law, Patty, who was my closer at her title company for many, many moons. So yes, a shout out to Patty. She is definitely a well-renowned, well-respected, and well-liked former member of the Denver metro real estate community. Yeah, she's a badass. We like her a lot. All right, so yeah, Jen, I don't imagine having any objections to having Chelsea back on the show. We could probably, have this conversation for a solid week. So yeah, why don't we work on that? Jen, why don't you tell our audience what the text code is providing these days?
It's the text tips to 63566. You'll get links to our podcast, our latest weekly tip, past episodes of How I Met Your Mortgage, information on the Mile High Mastermind, which will hopefully be happening in September. You can get a copy of Adam's book, Just the Tips, and you can book a free hour of coaching with us.
Cool. All right. So, Chelsea, thank you. I know that taking time out on a Monday, beginning of the month, brand new buyer under contract. Congratulations. You've got a lot of stuff to do today, so thank you for the time. We do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And it sounds like we'll do it again. I hope that works for everybody. All right, so thank you all for listening, for watching, live or in syndication. We'll be back next week, again, 10:30 a.m. Mountain Time, with another episode of How I Met Your Mortgage. Until then, Adam Smith, Jen Waymore with Just the Tips Coaching, and you guys have an amazing week.